Welcome, everyone. This is the Conversation Café. I'd like to take this time off the top to recognize that we are currently on the traditional territory shared between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe nations, which was acknowledged with the dish with one spoon wampum belt. That wampum uses the symbolism of a dish to represent the territory, and one spoon to represent that the people are to share the resources of the land and only take what they need. So with that, I'm very, very pleased to welcome everyone to our first Conversation Cafe for Arts for All. And we're very pleased to have guests with us today, Tom Wilson and Vitek Wincza.
Hey.
Tom is the best-selling Mohawk author of Burlington Scars, beautiful scars rather, a 5-time Juno-winning musician, an accomplished visual artist, and an all-around superhero of a Hamiltonian. His musical enterprises include Junk House, Lee Harvey Osmond, his self-titled solo work, and Blacking the Rodeo Kings, which recently announced a Massey Hall stint in March of 2022, which we're all excited about, and top-tier staples for Canadians at home and abroad. His art has been shown in galleries in New York City, Vancouver, and Toronto, as well as locally. And he has many commissions as well. On the heels of a Hamilton Arts Awards Lifetime Achievement Award, we're so honored to have Tom join us as our premier panelist in our very first of our series. Welcome, Tom.
Oh, well, thanks for tuning in, folks. That's all the time we have for today's show.
And our other guest is Vitek Wincza, who's the founder of Arts for All, formerly Culture for Kids in the Arts, the artistic director behind the Hamilton Conservatory for the Arts, founder of the HCA Dance Theater, and a role model for all creatives. His emigration from Poland as a professional dancer to Hamilton, becoming a teacher, choreographer, writer, and producer, led to the formation of all of these organizations and having a huge artistic imprint on our community. His work has been recognized through the Hamilton Gallery of Distinction, City of Hamilton's Community Arts Award, and the RBC's Citizen of the Year Awards process, to name a few. We are overjoyed to have Vitek as the other panelist on our premier Why Arts Matters Conversation Cafe. Welcome, Vitek.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I'm Jane Allison. I'm the principal behind Dovetail Community, a mentorship organization to other organizations to help them in the field of communications and community engagement. And this is, in fact, our very first Conversation Cafe, and it's the first of many series. We are looking at having Conversations Cafe. The ideas around them is to have real conversations with leaders in all areas of the arts, sharing why arts matter. It is the belief and the vision of Arts for All that the arts are a fundamental element for health and prosperity of a community. So join us in this first of many as we dig into this idea with some of the brightest artistic lights in our community, Vitek and Tom. So Tom, we're going to start with you and say, how important were the arts to you growing up on East 36th Street in Hamilton?
Well, they were my salvation. I didn't understand exactly where I was going to go to get inside them. The one thing that we have to remember, growing up in my era, growing up where I did, growing up with the situation, the neighborhood that I was in, is that I realized at a very young age that I had to find my own way, that my job was not to fit in, was to stay on the outside. That's the first lesson, I think, for being an artist for me, was that I was on my own with this, that there wasn't really outlets like Vitek's institution that he's created to help guide kids towards art. This is something that I talk about a lot because the outlets are important, but if we think back about to where we were before we went to school, when we were at the ages of 3 and 4, getting into 5, we all told stories. We made up stories. We all sang songs freely. We all acted stuff out. We all danced. we drew, we created visual art with a freedom that we lost as soon as we went to school and had to fit in and were put in straight lines. So as people working to be artists, and I never say that I'm an artist, but I do say that I'm a guy working to be an artist. If you're standing beside my grave throwing dirt on my grave, Jane, you're going to say, that Tom, he's kind of like an artist, because that's actually what I want to do with my life is work at being an artist.
I would
What I
say that
really want to
already,
do,
Tom, but yeah.
okay, my goal is to work at im, re injecting that 3-year-old spirit into my work, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Well, we love that. I think, Vitek, that's probably the heart and soul of a lot of the work and the ambition that you created the Conservatory and Culture for Kids with the arts, and now Arts for All, with that spirit of capturing that and helping foster that. Is that how arts shaped your life growing up?
Well, of course, I was in Poland, and when I was young, I was probably the poorest family in Poland. My mother never been in the theater. I never knew, thanks to the neighbor. And she said there's advertisement to audition for the professional ballet dancer, and this beautiful picture of the guy leaping in the air in a grand jeté kind of split position. Very impressive. Say, well, maybe they can be like that. And so we end up, it was 400 kids. We auditioned, and they picked me, one of them, and there's 50 people were accepted. It was special class, just the boys, full-time professional training, and with the academics. Um, I'm not sure if I will be here. I will have that chance. But the Poland had the policy that you don't pay for education, and they support it. So they even, being so poor, they give me stipend, like a $300 a month, to make sure I have vitamins and all other stuff, the dress properly. And eventually, after 3 years, everything became to start making sense. And I realized at that time that this is my opportunity, the lifetime opportunity, to be artist. Because in Poland, I don't know, but artists are well respected as a part of the community and society. So I thought maybe I can be respected, and I can make my dreams come true, travel around the world and all other stuff, because otherwise my future was very limited. So that was so I try hard to make this happen. Eventually I graduated, and I've danced in different companies, and I was in one of the companies, national dance company of Poland. We're touring North America, and there was 104 performances in one tour. Was killer. And we came to Hamilton Place, 5 performances. And I decided to stay, not to go back to the Kennedy Center and in Washington and do 3 performances there, back to European tour. That was my opportunity. That was given to me by art, and something I eventually felt like this is the only thing I have in my life. I don't have other opportunities. I don't have anything else. And because of that, I am who I am today. And because of the training and giving chance and access to have the dreams come true, which my dreams were developed in the process. Not I was in love with ballet because I had no idea. My neighbor knew more than my mother and me. And now I'm saying this is so important that the society will have access to especially in early years and young ages, access to the arts, to experience the arts. There's very big difference between the arts education is not to create professional dancers, musicians, painters, and theater artists. arts education is about to inspire imagination, and imagination will foster possibilities, and possibilities will bring successful people into our community, our country, and
Right.
the whole world. And I think
Right.
that's the main role. People have sometimes confused that with people coming to my school and saying, "Oh, if my son is not good in dance, just tell me and I'm gonna pull him out because if he cannot be professional, I'm wasting my money." So totally
Well, that's it.
misconcept. So
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
thinking, my thinking is, and it's since beginning of how affect me, and that eventually I become professional dancer. But what
Hmm.
I see right now, I I see that arts have much more important role in everybody's lives in shaping our who we are, and not just ours, but the whole world.
Well,
They
and that's a really perfect perspective on things because you grew up in a community, you were impoverished, but you had exposure to arts. Tom had exposure, but had to also go seek it. And Tom, I'm wondering, speaking of the connection to community, I mean, you're known as a big champion for the arts, very strong advocate.
Hmm.
What can the arts do for a community?
Okay, well, first of all, I just wanted to say that everything that Vitek said was fantastic, and that you respectfully don't even need me here. He speaks for me in so many ways in what he just said.
Oh,
Um, I mean, one of the problems with fitting in, just putting in a fraction of art into education is that you're really developing um, a population of really great spectators rather than participants. And I don't remember what your question was, but after listening to VTech talk and knowing that that is how I feel, you actually need people who are passionate
yeah.
about what they're doing to be able to open the door of
Hmm.
opportunity to the next person coming through. If you're just paying me whatever you're paying me, and I'm showing up to work and I'm going from 9 to 5 or 9 to 3, teaching some discipline. Uh, it's I don't have that I don't have the same amount of passion as say
Hmm.
VTech. You've got to lead children. You got to lead young adults. You got to lead youth. You know, to the fountains of inspiration, and they come out of people whether successful or not, but people who live and die by the creation of art. It's so important, and I don't think that, and it's also the difference between Poland and North America. And North America, really without art, without the without the effort that we make to create something new that wasn't there yesterday, all we're stuck with is Home Depots and WalMarts and big box malls. And as that old song goes, if I was a shopping center, I'd sure be embarrassed because I know I never get a date with some little building like from Paris. You know what I mean? And that's the difference between Europe and North America, is that North America is really set out to build soldiers of consumerism rather than modern
capitalism.
thinkers.
Now, what about the idea of the VTech touched on, Tom, in terms of, let's say you are kids or youth and you aren't ever going to be a professional, but
Well,
you
what
have a passion, you have a love, you have an appreciation. And let's say you're going to grow up to be an accountant.
now? Uh, Growing up to be an accountant's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I
Creative
know
too.
the difference today. I know. Actually, we both all need accountants here. VTech grew. The difference between VTech and I is that VTech actually had talent as a young person, and I really had to work really really hard to develop mine. I mean, people, being a professional, and with all respect to the fact that Vitek was a professional dancer from a young age. Being a professional is not what it's about. It's actually the execution. I mean, me selling a painting or having a painting hanging up in a gallery or in a store or whatever. That's not the goal. The goal is the execution, the beauty of the existence that we have as people trying to be artists is the actual creation of it. What
Pursuit
happens
of it.
after that? What happens after that is really why do I want to be concerned with where it goes after that? That's up to my managers and my accountants to figure out how to deal with that. Yeah.
I think also the other side of that is this idea of, if you consider a community with art, robust arts availability, and a community without, and the difference of what it's like to live in either one of those communities, even if you're not an artist yourself. It's sort of like night and day, I would imagine.
Yeah, I imagine. I'm just really interested in the society that Vitek grew up in, because it sounds like a pretty good place, not only for a starting point, but for an ending point. What are you doing in Hamilton, man? Obviously, making this a better center for the arts is what you're doing, to tell you the truth. So,
yeah. I choose
Vitek,
actually. I choose. Hamilton was the first city I ever been in Canada, but at the very beginning, I choose Canada as a place where I've been safe, and then I kind of fell in love in Hamilton because of the industrial aspect, and that's the raw thing which the artists needed. We don't need comfort zones and everything. The raw is better. So Canada was my direction. Why I always say by birth I'm Polish, but by choice I'm Canadian, and that's the choice on that time, and that was my best decision ever made in my life, and now I'm thankful. I'm paying back for that opportunity which I was given, and saying what else I can do. The only thing I know how to do arts, and what is the most important in the arts is the young people, and for many reasons. Even if you marriage to professional and non-professional recreational art and inspirational art, is this is Canada Arts Council. I'm being a little bit when I did the Nutcracker with Kiev Ballet, Hamilton Philharmonics, 400 local kids and adults in a show, they will never give me a penny for 10 years as long as I run, because they said, you have kids on the stage. You have young children on the stage. So my answer was, the arts education will help to survive and sustain our culture and help to build our culture. Because if we don't take care of that and we diminish that and only taking care of the professional side, what's going to happen? Who's going to come? Who's going to come to the concerts? Who's going to come to see ballets? Who's going to come to the, you may have a great artist, beautiful theaters and amphitheaters, but you won't have any audience because you have technology now taking over all the interest and everything. Who's going to come to live performances if you don't invest it in arts education? You have to think that way, because otherwise, my friend has artistic director in Germany, has the company, has no limits in the budget, believe it or not, because Mercedes-Benz is their major sponsor. And he said, Vitek, I can only do 3 shows. I have no limits on who I bring, how big I want, but I cannot do more than 3 because there's no more people to come and buy the tickets. So we have to think ahead, but it's also, that's what our diamond vision is, importance of what the arts are providing in shaping young people and young members of this community and this country. It make them stand out of anybody else. Imagination is the most important. It's more important than knowledge. And if you can have a knowledge, you can graduate from all university, but if you don't have imagination and free way thinking, you will not use that knowledge into another dimension, another layer, and create something out of it. You will be sitting on that knowledge. because that's all
Yep.
what you can do. You can't open more further. So then for the health reasons, especially now in the pandemic times, we're all depressed. We children are we're locked in the homes, and the effect of the mental health and everything. What can do the best? What is the chicken soup for it? Is the arts. Arts are communicative thing that everybody will find something out of it and release their lockdown, let's put it this way, from the society and social aspects. That is the most important thing. People feel better. Single mom, if she will have 3 kids and the kids will have access to the arts, she will feel good about it because she didn't have to have money to do that. Otherwise, my neighbor is sending for ballet and you're feeling bad and people getting sick, kids getting useless, they have nothing to do, they have no goals, no dreams to foster, nothing. They end up on the street and you know what's happened after. So it's more than just the pretty thing and a playground for rich.
It's true.
Again, so fantastic. I want to go back to your really, Vitek, everything so dead on, man. You went back to the original question is what about parents coming and talking about if their children aren't going to be professionals and why bother, you know what I mean? And that's, like I said, the execution of the art, the involvement, finding something that resonates you and something that enriches your life is more important than being a professional at this point in your life. I think that anybody that asks that question respectfully should really consider their children before the product of what their children can produce. It's kind of a sad thing, that whole question that you actually had to even ask that question, Jane. I mean, we want to, as people working as artists, Vitek running the show down there, man, we want to inspire youth to have a passion for living, because if you have a passion for living, you're going to find joy, and honest to God, we're going to be making a better planet. As far as what are
planet love, maybe, Tom?
A planet love wouldn't be bad, as far as what it is that why is culture important in our world? It's not about dollars and cents. I have to ask you, who was the first man on the moon? Was the first person on the moon wearing a NASA outfit or Apollo outfit with a big helmet and landing? No. That wasn't the first person on the moon. The first person was an artist that drew the moon for us to see.
Inspire.
Completely, and inspired us to want to go there. You know what I mean?
Get there.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's great. That's great.
Important points.
Exactly.
To us, anyway. To Vitek and I, these are important points.
Well, so let's lighten things up a teeny bit, even though this is incredibly important, and just have a quick lightning round to wrap up our chat.
Okay. So
you mentioned kids, Tom. How did you bring arts into your children's lives when they were young?
It was just there was music around, right? I mean, my kids grew up waking up in the morning and having musicians still sitting around the kitchen table playing guitars, at 7, 8 in the morning. I mean, it was a debaucherous scene in my home, to say the least at times. But there was always some kind of art supplies. There was always some kind of musical instruments around. For my kids and for my grandsons, it's just having art as just a part of life, the same as the stove, or the same as anything around the house. Is that the tools for art and the idea for art is always active, and it wasn't a conscious decision. It's just the way it was in my home.
Is that what you do with William, Vitek?
Well, we have a different story, because he knows I was former dancer. So he tells everybody in his class, school where the grandson of Tom is going, and saying
Yeah,
that
right.
my father forces me to do ballet. I never force him. I know this is the worst thing to do. And my approach is different. My approach is, I mean, it's not different, but we're all the same. You know, we know the role of the arts. Is how important it is. But you know, we involve him in the music, like a piano, vocal, the classical vocal, just to start to teach him the learning how to maintain and hold the voice, and you know, then whatever he does from that point, which direction he goes, is up to him if he does. But he said, "Oh, I don't like doing this. I don't like doing this. I don't like that. You're forcing me." I said, "No." So we sit down and we talk, and I mentioned to him that I want you to have well-rounded education. That you're taking the drama class, you're taking the music class, you're taking the dance, hip hop. Of course, he can do hip hop. So I said, do hip hop. I'm not going to force you. And it's part of your education, like your math and all other subjects. This is well-rounded education. It's not just the focus 1960 education when you learn how to memorize only your knowledge. This
Right.
way you can express your knowledge. You learn the process of learning, the process, how goes process into achieve something. And then here you have a painting, you have a blank paper, and now you have to make decisions. What to do? What will be the background? What will be the foreground? Lots of decisions, lots of things. And that translates to your life. So to me, I said, you know, this is like your school, but unfortunately, the board education doesn't offer that for the schools, which is ridiculous, because they're cutting the arts program, instead using arts programs as a vehicle to achieve better learning and learn how the learning happens. So they understand, they just not memorize. And the arts can do that. And if you look at any most successful school in the world, the arts are priority. Teachers will say, I don't know how you can teach without having arts in your school. So this is very important that the education understand what is arts education. That's what I started my speech, how important it is and how much it will help them to achieve their academic roles, because the kids will have fun there, they will want to come to school, and they would take the approach of learning differently than sitting in a table in the classroom and memorizing this whole knowledge.
Well, studies show that children who take music at school also do better with literacy and numeracy.
It's proven left and right. I'm
proven.
not sure why they don't do it. Why they don't do it. This is robbing the children of access and opportunities. They're robbing them. Because the people are who can afford it to come to conservatory. That's why I created a charity to balance that. So I'm not only for the people who can pay, because I will not be here if that would be the issue.
Right, that's true.
Everybody has to have access to the arts. Everybody. And as much they want. And it should be very affordable. And if they want to have higher grades or whatever higher, then we have to subsidize those things. I'm sorry, I got a little bit emotional about it. But it's just
passion is never anything to apologize for.
I'm not screaming. I'm passionate.
You're scaring me, Vitek.
So Tom, switching gears a little bit, is it an unfair question to ask you what's your favorite medium to create with? Like, is it music? Is it art? Is it writing?
You know, I've worked
Unfair.
all this time. Well, no, I don't think it's unfair, Jane, because I'm not going to answer it right. It's not unfair. I'll come up with my own answer for you. I've worked my entire life to get to the point where I'm able to sit down. First of all, for me, for creating, for writing music, it turns into almost some kind of creative muscle memory, so that when it's time for me to write songs, I pick up the guitar, I sit down, I start with, music and words. I go to write. I'm writing a second book right now. We just finished a play that's probably going to get produced in 2022. All these things happen because I want them to happen. So I'm up here on the third floor of my house. This is where I come every morning. I write till about noon, 1 o'clock, or if I'm on a roll, I keep going. But I leave here, and after this interview, I leave here and I'm going down to my studio at the Cotton Factory to paint. And to me, the energy that I put into these things is all the same. I'm putting the same direction. And I mean, people have asked Jane, they said, geez, Tom, how did you write that book? I said, well, it's just hard work. You know, it's the
page
one
at a
thing
time.
that what Vitek and I'll speak for Vitek in this, what we're creating, or we're trying to open the door. When we're opening the door of opportunity, it's not a cakewalk, man. It's not an easy step. It's probably the hardest road that you're going to be taking on in your life, is not making this decision, but executing the hard work that it takes to create something that brings you some kind of joy. And that's why I think that Vitek's talk about education, which I agree with 100%, is because the arts in formal education in schools is kind of like recess or like time out. It's not taken, it's not emphasized. The hard work that goes into it isn't emphasized. The hard work into writing a book report is emphasized. The hard work into learning algebra is emphasized, or chemistry or history. Which, by the way, the history book, I don't even want to get into the history books.
Don't even,
in
this
this
is not an
country.
easy week to
But
be
this
Canadian.
is that's the hard work in formal education. Art, drama, music, the theater, the visual art. That's time out. That's considered time out to a lot of people in the education system. I'm not even pointing fingers. I'm just saying that's where I came from, is that it was time to piss around, man. And really, the arts, it's time to get down to work. That's what I have to say.
Great. That's a perfect note to wrap things up with, I think.
Okay, well, Vitek, sure been great
Okay.
hearing you talk. And Jane, thanks for having me.
Thank you
Welcome.
very much.
Thank
Tom.
you so much,
Tom.
Tom and
Thank you.
Vitek. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Jane, for inviting
your
me.
heart,
Thank
and
you.
your soul. And so,
Thank you.
thanks to everybody who's watching. Keep watching. We'll be having more conversation cafes, and follow hashtag Why Arts Matters over the summer for a really great campaign. And check out the new Arts for All at artsforall.co. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you guys. We'll see you
Thank
later.
you. See you later.
I don't remember this one. Chirpy Sounds hard. Why Elliot is tweet, 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 I did it! Stay strong and stay happy always.